Hey, it's Mazzy, and I'm going to show some records about San Francisco and London. Now, these are for a thread, a contest entry for Randall Nelson, 200 subscribers. And it's interesting. I like these kind of contests where they're sort of a little bit generic, but specific, if that makes any sense. And I'm putting it in two answers to three questions. The first question, or what he calls prompts, are show some records about the city you were born in or the city you're from, okay? And then bands are from the city that you were born in, same kind of thing. Well, obviously, those of you who watch my channel and ad nauseum, I've talked about San Francisco. Big fan of my hometown, lived there 50 years plus. Um, and now I'm in Seattle for the last 7 years, 8 years now. So San Francisco is always important to me, and there are a lot of videos. If you search my name in San Francisco, there are things of Winterland, of shows I've went to. There's specific bands of San Francisco, psychedelic scene, and the like. So check those out. But congratulations, Randall. Really like your low-key approach, and you've been very supportive of my channel as well. So this is for you, Randall. And the second question is a city that you love or you'd like to go to or visit. And I'm a big fan, Anglophile of the UK. So the second part of this is going to be about London, England, of course. I've been there maybe 6 times in my life, and I'll talk about that. So I'm putting 1 and 2 together, and I'm sort of doing my own creative thing. I'm going to launch off just with a book by the photographer Jim Marshall. And Jim Marshall is a photographer I knew for 25 years, passed away about 10 years ago. Did a lot of great album covers, from John Coltrane to Miles Davis to the Woodstock album cover to Jefferson Airplane, Grateful Dead, Johnny Cash, the famous finger shot. And he's from San Francisco. And this is a book called The Haight. And I happen to be born on the very corner of The Haight on Stanton Street overlooking Golden Gate Park. So of course, there's Janis Joplin at the Palace of Fine Arts in the Marina. That was left over from the Panama Pacific Exposition, the World's Fair. Kind of a welcome back after the San Francisco '06 earthquake. Wonderful photographs in this book, wonderful photographs about the Haight mostly, and the music scene, and what was happening. Of course, the beautiful Grace Slick of the Great Society and Jefferson Airplane, and I could go on with this book alone and shows so much wonderful things from this book. But Haight Street, there you go. This is a fabulous photo book. I highly recommend it if you're into the music scene and if you're into photography by Jim Marshall. So I think because of that, I'm going to work a little backwards. And first I'm just showing, so again, I'm twisting this around. I'm going to show some album covers that are definitely linked to San Francisco and taken in San Francisco and about San Francisco. And the first one is this Grant Green album. Ironically, coincidentally, but this is planned. This photograph was taken by Jim Marshall. And this is a corner Grant and Green, Upper Grant in North Beach area, just adjacent to Chinatown in San Francisco. North Beach was the whole beat scene, the Italian neighborhood, City Lights Books, Bohemian, Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, beat poet scene. But what a great album cover. It still exists, this cross street up in Upper Grant with some cafes and bars and boutiques and things like that. So Lawrence Ferlinghetti was the one that owned City Lights Books, but the great album cover by Grant Green, jazz guitarist. Next, Thelonious Alone in San Francisco. This is a solo piano recording, beautiful record, recorded solo in a club that was that became Club Fugazi in North Beach, and he used that to record the solo piano. So it was a studio type setup in a location without an audience. A beautiful record, and of course, when you stick a cable car on it, it just makes total sense. Staying with the jazz realm again, Archie Shepp live in San Francisco. These Victorians, my guess is this is either in the Western Edition or the Fillmore District of San Francisco. This is recorded in 1966, San Francisco, Archie Shepp. And George Shearing, the blind jazz pop piano player. His stuff is very schmaltzy, very easygoing. And of course, George Shearing Quintet recorded live, swinging by the Golden Gate San Francisco scene. There's a picture of him. I don't know if he knows where he is, but that looks like the steps near Telegraph Hill in San Francisco. So giving you a little taste of the city. My love, my birth city, love it. And of course, one of the great folk songs, Jesse Fuller's song, San Francisco Bay Blues, that he wrote, that has been covered by countless people, including blues artists and Tom Rush and folk artists and rock artist Paul McCartney and Eric Clapton. So many people have recorded San Francisco Bay Blues. I probably have about 30 different variations of that song, but of course, the great Jesse Fuller, the amazing one-man band where he literally played everything. This is a great record. If you find this record, pick it up. Good Time Jazz label. And then the first album by the Beau Brummel San Francisco group, signed by Tom Donnie, who was kind of considered the godfather, the father of underground FM radio, starting with KMPX and KSAN, was a DJ and producer, and produced the last Beatles concert at Candlestick. But he put this together. It was produced by Sly Stone, Sly Stone, of course, who was a DJ who later would start Sly and the Family Stone. But this is San Francisco looking over the Golden Gate Bridge from Baker Beach in San Francisco, and of course their first hit in 1964, Laugh Laugh, great single. And another jazzy thing, so the great moods of Cal Tjader, the Cal Tjader Quintet, or is it a quartet? Is it a quintet or a quartet? It's a quartet. Vibraphonist, of course, a wonderful picture of the cable car. Looks like at the cable car turnaround, probably below Ghirardelli Square, is my guess. But San Francisco moods, Cal Tjader on Fantasy Records. Then going into, obviously, bands from San Francisco. Of course, there's nothing like a Grateful Dead concert, and that's the Grateful Dead in positive and negative form on the steps of the house they rented at 710 Ashbury Street. You can still go visit it. There are now bars in the front, like a beautiful iron gate, basically, so you can't sit on the steps. I totally get it. This is only a few, like a block up from Haight Street in the Haight-Ashbury, San Francisco. And then the other group, Jefferson Airplane, this is their album 2400 Fulton Street, and of course their mansion that they bought in the late 60s. And I actually, from 1979 to 1983, I lived in an apartment directly on the street behind it. So a lot of times I'd walk up Willard's North, which was a side street here. This is on Fulton, faces Golden Gate Park. And I would hear them practicing. This was later period, so this would have been Starship, Hot Tuna, things like that. But 2400 Fulton Street, the address of the Jefferson Airplane Mansion. Of course, great band. And since I'm, showing the Jefferson Airplane, I'm going to show Hot Tuna. This is them in their car that has a Hot Tuna license plate. This is placed on Ocean Beach. That's the beach all along the Great Highway, right below from the Cliff House and adjacent to Golden Gate Park. And that's, of course, Hot Tuna with Papa John Creech and Sammy Piazza on drums. And this is their second album. That's not as, the first album was acoustic bass live, and this is their second album. But saw Hot Tuna so many times in the Bay Area perform San Francisco. Probably the ultimate song of San Francisco is Tony Bennett's rendition of I Left My Heart in San Francisco. I've seen him play many times. He sang the song before San Francisco Giants baseball games. And it's just one of those iconic songs of the city. So I Left My Heart in San Francisco, which I actually did there. And be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. John Phillips penned song with Scott McKenzie singing San Francisco. Be sure to wear some flowers in your hair if you're going there. 1967. John Phillips wrote it, who was from the Mamas and Papas. Now, this is interesting. This is a song, Fever Tree. This is a great song. San Francisco Girls, very psychedelic, wonderful song. Ironically, the band is from Houston, Texas, kind of a one-hit wonder. But It's kind of an interesting album. San Francisco Girls, the hit. Really cool record. And of course, I keep thinking of San Francisco Nights, A Warm San Francisco Nights, Eric Burton and the Animals. Now, the thing is, they're a very rare warm San Francisco night. So come on, Eric. You haven't really spent a lot of time there. You're kind of in a delusion of Monterey and all the beautiful summer of love stuff. But it gets cold, cool in San Francisco. Believe me, I know. But what a great, great song. And this is one of those songs of the summer of love. You just cannot love if you're a fan of San Francisco. And lastly, for this section, I'm showing this Chris Isaak song album, San Francisco Days, and there's a song, San Francisco Days, San Francisco Nights. Great song. Love Chris Isaak. He lived for many years out on the Great Highway, near the Great Highway, adjacent to Ocean Beach, also where that Hot Tuna album was photograph was taken. And one of my photographers photographed him out there with his surfboard because he was a big surfer. He lived out there, would surf regularly, during the week at Ocean Beach, freezing, icy cold water, but that. And I did see, I don't know if it was this album, but I went to a record release party for Chris Isaak at the Tonga Room in the Fairmont Hotel, a great tiki bar, and it's in the basement of the Fairmont Hotel on Nob Hill. And where the old swimming pool was, they have this boat that comes out, almost like in Disneyland, with lightning, thunder, rain showers. And the band, Chris Isaak and his band, debuted on that boat playing music from their new album. I can't remember which album it was, but let's just say it's San Francisco Days by Chris Isaak. Now, let's go to London. So I've always been a Beatle fan, and because of that, I became an Anglophile, and I couldn't wait to go to London, England. I went first in 1978, and then in 1980, and I've been there again about 6 times, I think, over the years. And shameless promotion, in 1980, we went there to research, and we did our book, the first travel guide to the Beatles, England. Beatles, England, day tripping to Hamburg, Liverpool, Stonehenge, West Palling, Airfield, places they grew up, places they were born. Long out of print, unfortunately. The book came out in 1982, but it's a travel guide of Beatles sites all throughout England. So, having said that, I'm a big Anglophile, and I love going to England. And the obvious choice, Abbey Road, St. John Woods, around the corner or a few blocks away is Paul McCartney's house. Obviously, this made the crosswalk infamous forever. Abbey Road Studios, it was called EMI Studios, is right there. Later, it was changed to Abbey Road Studios, mainly because of the fame of this record. And you should Google, there's a camera up there. It's a 24-hour camera pointed at the crosswalk. So any time of day or night, you can watch people crossing the Abbey Road crosswalk. So check that out. I'll try to put a link below if I remember. Of course, Pink Floyd's Animals album. This is the Battersea Power Station. There's 2 power stations on the Thames, very similar to this. The other one was turned into the Tate Modern Museum. Great museum. This was also seen in the motion picture Help when the power goes out in the movie Help, if you know what I'm talking about. They cut to a very famous power station, Battersea Power Station, Pink Floyd Animals. The London Bridge, as seen on 1978's Wings' London Town album, the Great Tower Bridge. This is Camden Market on the debut. This is my UK original of The Clash. I think this was outside of a rehearsal space in Camden Market in London. Well, this is Vauxhall Bridge Road. This is the Ian Dury and the Blockheads, New Boots and Panties. That's Ian Dury's son on the front. This is Vauxhall Bridge Road. And finally, let's talk about Berwick Street. This became a famous cover. And all these places, there's whole tourist attractions to these locations. And I could have gone with David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust and everything, but this is Berwick Street, London, of course. The wonderful debut where the Wanker brothers, the Gallagher brothers, rip off the Beatles and rip off George Harrison by calling a song Wonderwall. Okay, I like it. named after George Harrison's soundtrack he did for the movie Wonderwall. So there you go. Oasis, and there's London and San Francisco, two of the great cities that I'm in love with. And Randall Nelson, congratulations. There's a link below to his channel. Please go to Randall's channel, watch some of his videos, his calming presentation, and subscribe if you can to him. And thanks for watching. London and San Francisco. Mazzy loves you.